Something I'd like to discuss just briefly is the so-called interoceptive awareness that's present in people with ADHD, both children and adults. Interoceptive awareness is one's sense of one's own internal state, heartbeat, breathing, contact of skin with a given surface, etc. For a long time, there was this hypothesis, this idea that people with ADHD were just not in touch with how they felt, that somehow they weren't registering all the stuff that was going on inside them, changes in heart rate and so forth. And so they were behaving in a way that was dysregulated or appeared dysregulated. And that if they could just learn to attend to their internal state better, that somehow they would function better in the world. Now, before we described a process, literally a 17-minute interoceptive exercise that does seem to lead to improvements in one's ability to focus for a longer period of time. However, it's very unlikely that that was due to increasing interoceptive awareness per se. It probably wasn't because people gain a much heightened or improved ability to understand what's going on internally. In fact, you can imagine how that might actually prevent one's ability to pay attention to things in the outside world. So while there is benefit to just sitting there and being in stillness, as they say, or focusing on one's breathing and internal state for sake of then accessing information in the external world, a really nice study called Interoceptive Awareness in Attention Deficit Hyperactivity Disorder explored whether or not interoceptive awareness was different in people with ADHD or did not have ADHD. And the findings were essentially that there's no difference, that people with ADHD, children and adults, they are aware of what's going on inside them just as much as anyone else is. And the typical measure of interoceptive awareness is one's ability to count their own heartbeats. This is actually challenging for some individuals and very easy for other individuals, regardless of their attentional capacity. Some people just can really feel their heartbeat without taking their pulse. Other people cannot. And these studies are pretty straightforward to do. You ask people to sit there and to count their heartbeats, and then you are monitoring their heartbeats, and you get to gauge how accurate they are. So it's important to understand that people with ADHD are in touch with how they feel. It's really a question of whether or not they can take the demands that are placed upon them and enter a cognitive state, a mental state that allows them to access the information they need to access. In other words, whether or not they can focus. But it is absolutely wrong to think that the child that's getting up 11 times during a short 6-minute interaction at the table, or whether or not a child who somehow has to venture off every moment, or a coworker of yours who's an adult who's constantly fidgeting or moving things around, that somehow they are unaware, that they are oblivious. They are not oblivious to how they feel. Chances are they are very challenged in the situations that they're in, and they're doing everything they can to try and regulate their attention. So I think it's an important study to highlight, because it really underscores the fact that something else is going on, and that something else has everything to do with this ability to coordinate these task-directed networks and to coordinate that in the proper way with that default mode network. And that is a process, as you now know, that's regulated exquisitely by certain neurochemicals, and in particular the neurochemicals dopamine, norepinephrine, and serotonin. And a fourth one I'd like to throw into the mix, which is acetylcholine, which is very vital for cognitive focus.